There we go. Get my gavel out, make it official. And good afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and call this session of the City of Bonney Lake Hearing Examiner to order. For the record, today is February 21st, 2023, just after 1 p.m. We have one item on the agenda this afternoon. This is number PLN 2022-02782, involving a request for approval of a reasonable use exception, or RU or RUX, to allow for the construction of a driveway and stormwater dispersion trench within a wetland buffer on property at 18802 62nd Street East, in conjunction with the development of a new single-family residence on the undeveloped property. My name is Andrew Reeves. I'm a hearing examiner with Sound Law Center, who the city has selected to hold certain land use application hearings like this one. And today it will be my role to collect evidence in the form of exhibits and testimony to determine whether this proposal complies with the city's comprehensive plan, zoning ordinances, critical areas ordinances, and the specific criteria for approval of a reasonable use exception under the municipal code. To that end, I received several exhibits in advance of the hearing that I had an opportunity to review. These include a staff report prepared by city staff, the application materials themselves, including several technical exhibits, information about the notice that was provided in relation to the application, as well as today's hearing, information on the environmental review that occurred under our state's Environmental Policy Act, and then some comments from reviewing departments and governmental agencies, although nobody seemed to express major concern about the proposal. So I'm going to go ahead and admit those 9 exhibits into the record. Should anyone have additional exhibits they would like admitted into the record, let me know when it's your opportunity to testify, and I'll go ahead and address admitting additional exhibits at that time. Speaking of testimony, all testimony today will be under oath or affirmation. That's because were my decision to be appealed under our state's Land Use Petition Act, or LUPA, the recording of today's hearing, as well as the admitted exhibits, would serve as the foundation for any such appeal. Finally, the order that we typically follow, and I believe we're going to follow today, is first I'll swear in city staff, who will give an overview of the proposal and sort of explain the process that brought us here. After that, we'll hear from the applicant team and see if there's any additional information they feel that myself or members of the public should be aware of in advance of my making a decision on the proposal. And then at that point, we'll see if there are any members of the public interested in testifying, and if so, they will have that opportunity. And then if appropriate at the end, we'll turn back to the applicants and city staff to respond to any such testimony. I may and sometimes do ask questions of those that are testifying, not trying to trip anyone up, just trying to ensure I have a thorough understanding of the proposal so that within a couple weeks of the record closing, I'm able to produce a decision that is hopefully clear and legally defensible. I'm very stuffed up today, so I apologize if that's coming across, but I will do my best, and I think we'll charge through. It seems to be fairly straightforward, but I just wanted to point that out, so apologies in advance for that. But with that, I think we can go ahead and get started. And Jason, you have a sort of look on your face I'm not used to. You normally have kind of a laid back, like, is it the new tech, or you're trying to?
Yeah, I'm struggling with tech right now, so just
That's fine.
give me 1 second real quick. I'm trying to do 3 things at once. So
Well, 3 for you is actually pretty good. Normally,
yeah,
anytime Jason Sullivan and I are chatting, he's doing 28 things at once. I think 22 or so, like I normally am doing, is bad, but he's even worse. This man is a juggler. So with that,
I'm getting good at it.
can we get you sworn in, Mr. Sullivan?
Yep,
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in the testimony you give here today?
I do.
And if you could just state and spell your name for the recording.
Jason Sullivan. First name is Jason. Last name is Sullivan, Sullivan, and I'm the planning and building supervisor for the city of Bonney Lake.
Great, go ahead, and thank you, sir. And was 9 the number of exhibits you were hoping I would review, as I stated?
Yes, we do have 2 PowerPoint slides just to walk you through some of the information in the exhibits. They're for illustrative purposes. I didn't plan on entering them as.
Okay.
I'm going to share my screen real quick.
We'll have them be illustrative or demonstrative. Either is a perfectly acceptable lawyery sounding word, meaning they won't be part of the record, although I'm guessing they are the kind of thing that are not new evidence as well. Oh, that's fancy. Look at that.
Wow.
Although we
All
could
right.
just us. Excellent use of negative space, but go ahead.
All right. So what we have is the reasonable use exemption for the Waters House. This property is located at the end of a dead-end road known as 62nd Street East. The road dead ends right at their kind of westerly or easterly property line. It's approximately a 5-acre parcel that was downzoned years ago to our RC5 zoning designation, which is a 1 unit for every 5 acres. It was downzoned to that designation due to the significant amount of critical areas on the site. The reasonable use exemption is primarily needed for the access road. As you can see from the aerial photo, the site is currently completely forested, and there has been wetland delineations to the east of the site that are part of the larger wetland complex that was delineated on the site.
Sorry, and to clarify your very first comment there, Mr. Sullivan, the dead end road is to their western property line. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
And then it becomes a private access, private road from that point to serve the last 4 properties that are basically one still big 5-acre land chunks of land. The wetland is primarily located on the southern end of the property. It is a Class 2 wetland. And under our code, because the density of the housing is greater, or I should say less than 1 unit per acre, the buffer only needs to be 110 feet as measured from the wetland boundaries.
Okay.
The home itself has been situated to be outside of any of the regulated critical areas, other than the regulated undevelopable critical areas, to minimize and mitigate the impacts to critical areas. However, because of the location and its approximation to the 62nd Street, which is the only access to the lot, there's no way to get access from the north because of the existing development pattern. There is a small impact to the buffer in order to provide access, to regrade and get the access road in, and then also the infiltration gallery that's needed to disperse the stormwater. The city has reviewed the application and feel that it meets all the conditions for a reasonable use exemption. Without this driveway, there would be no use of the property. Any of the uses allowed on the property, from a park to a single-family home, would require some sort of access improvement. So this is one of the least impactful designs, as it keeps the home out of the wetland and only impacts the wetland in a way that all uses would impact the wetland. It was also designed to follow an existing on-site dirt road that was existing to further minimize the impacts. So the project has been designed to minimize impacts to the critical area, especially if the conditions of approval recommended are included, which is including kind of mitigating the loss of the buffer by increasing the buffer on the north side of the wetland where no development is proposed, and also replanting the regraded slope with wetland plants to mitigate for that permanent or that temporary impact. Without the reasonable use exemption, it's the city's position that there would be no reasonable economic use of the property. As I said, as all uses require access. That includes our presentation, unless you want us to kind of walk through each of the conditions. But we felt that the staff report did a good job of covering those requirements.
Sure. Just to clarify one of the points you made, Mr. Sullivan, my understanding was that there's a Class 2 landslide. Oh, wow. You didn't disappear, did you?
No, I just turned off my screen sharing.
Oh, man. Okay. Sorry. You minimized. Where did you go, though? Where did I go?
I can see everybody. I should pop back up.
Hold on. Apologies, everybody. Blue jeans, where are you?
Sorry about that. Didn't mean to.
No, I'm just gonna be here looking like an idiot. Where on it?
Were you on the web view or the application side, Andrew?
I Blue Jeans is. Oh, there we are. Okay. I'm the ranking. I'm Zoom. I'm very competent, I would say at this point. WebEx, Blue Jeans, any Microsoft product, Teams. I can't even go low enough. But and Jason Sullivan had me, I think, on a Teams meeting last week. So
Try to keep you on your toes, sir.
keeping you on my toes. So, keeping you on your toes, you had just testified this would be a Class 2 wetland. My understanding was there's a Class 2 landslide hazard area that is beyond the scope, as it were, of my review, and this is actually a Class 1 wetland, at least per the staff report.
Oh, that is correct. No, yes, I believe is that.
It's a Category 1
Yeah.
wetland and
Yeah,
a
it's a
Class 2
cat-
landslide.
You are correct. And the Category 2 landslides in our code are considered developable critical areas as long as they're supported with a geotechnical report, which the waters have submitted, which is why it's outside the RUEX requirements, because you can develop in it without a reasonable use exemption as long as it's supported by a geotechnical report, which has been submitted and accepted, and that acceptance is included as an exhibit to the staff report.
Yes, sorry. Was it? Wait.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
believe it is exhibit number 5. The city's acceptance
Yeah,
of the
sorry.
geotechnical report.
I focused a lot more on the wetland one because it was the one in front of me. But thank you. Yes. So I think Mr. Waters clarified well. We should focus category versus class. So Category 1 wetland, Class 2 landslide hazard area. And I think, as you know, Mr. Sullivan, I have some experience on understanding the difference between a Class 1 and a Class 2 landslide
Yes.
hazard. So no need to give me more detail on how that works. In terms of this particular proposal, just to be clear, it's currently an undeveloped site. The wetland has been delineated with the report that was provided. The city has essentially accepted that report. However, the report itself did not include a mitigation plan. Is that right?
That is correct. There wasn't a mitigation planning plan, which is our typical approach. We don't really require mitigation plans till we know everything's approved because it's time and effort to prepare those things, and we don't want to do that till we know what the final design package looks like. One of the conditions is we do want to see a wetland mitigation planning plan for just the regraded slope, which is loosely mentioned in the wetland report, but not specifically identified, nor is a plan prepared. And that plan would just be reviewed as part of us reviewing the building.
Okay, but the 3-to-1 ratio that has been also recommended, the sort of delineation of where that would happen, unless I missed it, wasn't completely spelled out.
Yeah, so the 3-to-1 is just a enlargement of the standard buffer on a 3-to-1 ratio. So for every square foot of buffer that we're impacting, just enlarging the buffer on the north end of the site. No planting, just enlarging the buffer that's going to be placed in the critical area protection tract. So no planting in that area. It's just going from where, if you look at the site where it's 110, in that area it would bulb out to a greater percentage in order to keep the total square foot of the wetland buffer the same.
Got it. So it's a little bit like sort of buffer averaging, but instead of, they don't need to remove invasives or have an actual planting plan, but that area that will be enlarged will be protected in perpetuity with I can't remember what you call them, not a native growth protection area, but whatever the comparable term for Bonney Lake is.
Kappa. It's
Kappa.
Critical area protection. And because it's not necessarily an easement, we just called it an area, so it ends up being a Kappa for short. And then the planting would only be for that regraded slope along the roadway or the
Got it.
driveway.
Okay. So the mitigation is somewhat limited to the extent that it's the direct impact of installing the driveway, and I assume that dispersion trench and that kind of impact is comparably in the same area.
Yeah,
But oh, go ahead.
go ahead. I was just going to say the direct impact would be the things that are permanent, which would be the driveway, the infiltration gallery. That permanent impact would be the 3-to-1, and then the temporary impact would be the regrading, and then we would just replant that regraded slope with a mitigation plan.
Sure, and I ask because, as we all know, with a mitigation plan, usually there's monitoring, 5 to 10 years, and there's additional requirements, often removing invasive, et cetera. And in terms of the 3-to-1 that I was thinking of, that is not being required. It's just related to the direct impacts from the driveway and
just a pure square footage calculation.
Got it. Okay. And then, because I have you and we have a smaller crowd today, I do want to ask, the city of Bonney Lake has you, the director, sort of make a decision in relation to critical areas reports that is technically appealable to me, the hearing examiner, and that is independent and separate of a SEPA determination. I guess, would, for instance, the mitigation plan that happens later technically also potentially be appealable? I just am trying to understand. I appreciate the level of environmental protection, but the one concern I sort of have is it could maybe be onerous in terms of how many steps, or would it all be consolidated in front of me if necessary?
It would be consolidated in front of you if necessary. I think technically the wetland mitigation plan, because it's a city decision, is appealable. The reason that we split our process is we actually don't do a lot of RUAXs, because we're able to usually work through it with other code provisions. But the acceptance of the critical areas report means it meets the substantive requirements, meaning that all of the delineation forms are there, all of the things that need to be in the critical area report are there, but not accepting beyond that. We went to a two-step approach because we found that people were giving us critical areas reports, spending lots of money on mitigation plans. We would go back and forth on the mitigation plans, and not everybody needed one. And so we just split it into a two-step process in order to save applicants a little bit of time and money, so that if we could work through it with a critical areas report, we wouldn't need the mitigation. And so we don't do a lot of mitigation plans, actually. So,
okay.
So that's why we split it. But yes, technically, it could be appealed, but we would try to consolidate all the appeals into one appeal if possible. And it would only be the parties of record that it would be appealable. And at this time, after this hearing, the only people that have made comments really are the waters. So it would be whether or not the waters want to appeal what we're working with them.
And for the waters, do not be terrified about me asking about this. I do not have a specific concern. I'm fairly new to Bonney Lake in this role, and I've had, I think, 2 hearings that touched on the idea that you could appeal the sort of earlier critical areas reports. So I just wanted to make sure I understood the process, and I think I do. But nothing specific to your project. So please do not be terrified that I am sitting here nitpicking and worried. I just figured we have Jason on the hot seat. We'd ask him a question or two. So with that, in terms of my role today, very specifically, if you can verify, Mr. Sullivan, the RUE, or RUAX as I usually call it, is specifically related to constructing the driveway and stormwater facilities within the Category 1 wetland buffer, not the wetland itself.
Correct.
But 110-foot buffer, but not related to the Class 2 landslide hazard area or any other critical area. And so it's limited in scope. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. It is limited to the temporary and permanent impacts to the wetland buffer only.
Got it. Okay.
Everything else can be done under the current code as it were without the RUEX.
There we go. Got it. And then in terms of, I don't recall, maybe it was in there, but in your review, the sort of way that stormwater is being addressed on site, I know we're in the preliminary stages, but that dispersion trench, I assume the idea is that that'll provide for some kind of hydrologic recharge with that wetland. Is that the idea?
That is correct. The ideal is it maintains the hydrologic periods for the wetlands, and it also meets the Pierce County Stormwater Manual for keeping water on site. We didn't want to divert the water and infiltrate it onto another side of the location. So that's why you do the dispersion trench, to keep the same amount of water flowing to the wetland.
Got it. Okay. Well, I think those are the questions specifically I had for you. And you had said your 2 PowerPoint slides were demonstrative, so no need to include them in the record. So I'm at 9 exhibits. And at this point, I think we can go to our applicants, unless you have other members of staff you intend on calling upon.
Nope, we are done.
Okay, so I'll swear you both in just in case you would both like to speak, but then I'll take you one at a time, whoever dives in first. But if you can both raise your hand, do you swear affirm to tell the truth in the testimony you give here today?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, whoever's going first, I need you to spell your name.
Oh, Jameson.
Okay.
Last name Waters.
Okay.
What's spell your name?
Yeah, it's Cassandra. Waters, Waters.
Great, thank you so much. And so this is your opportunity to present any additional information you feel that myself or members of the public should be aware of in advance of my making a decision. And I don't know if I have any specific questions, but if I think of any, I'll ask, but please go right ahead.
Yeah, I think the 94-page document Jason put together is pretty robust. We've had a wetland biologist out there and a geotechnical engineer who provided those reports. The existing dirt access road that's there that we're using a portion of has been there for, based on the aerial photos, I would say at least 30 or 40 years. So it's a long-standing dirt access road, which is still drivable. Before we bought the property, it seemed like a lot of people are using it as their dog park. So the trail is well maintained. And then, we planned it to minimize the impact to the critical area. Our philosophy for this project is to retain as much natural vegetation as we can. We actually don't want to disturb it. We like it the way it is. So we're going to, remove only what we have to as far as natural vegetation or trees, because we want to keep it the way it is. So RC5 zoning is perfect for us. And then I would say it's worth mentioning that the existing dirt road is about 40 to 50 feet away from the seasonal wetland, as high as we've seen it. It's pretty dry right now. And the highest that we've seen it is still about 40 to 50 feet away from the existing dirt road, which is closer than where we will be developing the new access up to the building site. And so we designed it to go away from the critical area.
Got it. So even at the highest point, the most inundated, as it were, that the wetland is with the ordinary high water or high water mark, maybe it sounds like high water mark is what you're pointing out, Mr. Waters. Even with that, you've got, 40, 50 feet of buffer, as it were, so that with development, there should be no direct impact on the buffer, and perhaps even less so.
Yeah, it's probably at least 10 to 15 feet elevated from the highest that I've seen the wetland. So,
And it's dry most of the time.
Yeah, Yeah, the soil there drains really well. We had our perk holes dug for septic, and they've retained. There's been no standing water in them for this entire wet season. So the soil drains pretty well. It's that rocky glacial till alderwood soil.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was just one correction that. Oh, did you have a question?
No, I just, in terms of the audio, for history's sake, if you can, you already spelled your name, but if you can just say it's now Cassandra
Oh,
Waters.
sorry.
No,
This is
it's okay.
Cassandra Waters. There was just one correction. The dead end is on the eastern side of the property. I don't know if that matters. Right? It was
Okay,
said that
so
it was the western earlier.
I think
So there,
I confused it, or yeah, we'll
well,
blame it on me.
yes.
I think the idea is that the road dead ends. Wait, sorry.
So yeah, so I'll spell it out for you, Andrew. So the city maintained road terminates at the southwestern corner,
Yeah.
and then it turns into a paved private access that goes along the southern property, and then that paved private access terminates to a gravel access that feeds the parcel that's kitty corner southeast, because the parcel that's directly east is still vacant and wooded and undeveloped.
See, I'm glad we clarified, because I think I was confused to the extent that I just thought 62nd dead ended at the western property line, but instead that's where the city maintained road ends, and there's 3 or 4 parcels that are served by a private road. Is that right?
Yes, there would be, yeah. So we're north of 62nd. There's probably an undevelopable parcel south of us because it's mostly wetland. There's a developed parcel, kitty corner southeast, that has one house on it, and that's where the paved access, private access ends. That's where their gravel driveway starts that serves that house.
Okay. Is there a good exhibit or photo I can find in that 95 pages, Jason,
Probably.
for anyone?
Yeah, so if you go to page like 20, 21,
Okay.
there's a wetland photo there, and you can see it's an aerial photo, and you can see the one house that's developed there, that provides like an aerial view.
Is this the aerial that's delineated with the green and the blue kind of?
Yeah, so you can see in the lower right, there's one house that's developed on that 5-acre parcel. Ours is highlighted in green. It's difficult to see here 62nd Street itself, but you can kind of, just draw a line on that southern property line, and that's essentially the road. So.
Okay. I think now. Oh, thank you. Okay. In my mind, access was coming from the other direction entirely. So I'm glad this was clarified. So there's.
So there's a paved road all along the southern property line, and then the existing dirt access is in the very southeast corner of the property, and you can see that. Let's see, on the site plan on about page. So the image just above the one you're looking at shows the existing dirt access in a long dashed line as it goes along the wetland. It's kind of hard to see because it kind of blends with the 1-foot contours, but it's about 20 feet, about 15 to 20 feet elevated from where the wetland is delineated.
Okay, so the private lane or road, as it were, it essentially skirts the southern end of the property, but you're still coming to your property from the west, but you don't actually enter your property until you get all the way to the eastern boundary, and then you cut north. Is that right?
That's accurate.
Hallelujah. Okay, that's where I got confused. I was looking and thinking, oh, do you somehow cut over from 189th court, or it would? Okay, now I get it. So it's kind of you come under and then at the very end pop up.
Yeah, so that's why the like Jason mentioned, the only reasonable economic use of the property is to use that existing access because you can't enter it from the north. There's a housing development there. You can't enter it from the west. That's all. Those are existing lots there. You can't enter it from the southwest because that's where the wetland is. So that only leaves you one corner, and that's the southeast where there's an existing access road.
Got it. Oh, thank you for yeah, I would have totally botched that. And so now I think I fully get it. So I'm redrawing the map in my own notes for the poor law clerk that's going to help me with this, but project site. Okay. And then you pop up right there. Got it. Thank you so much. I apologize for not grasping it, but
Yeah, no, that's
No
fine.
worries.
And then the slope also sort of that's why we put the house up there is because it's outside the buffer, which is helpful, but it's also flat up there. And some loose napkin math puts the grade of that driveway access at about 8%, something. It's about 40 feet of elevation over about 300 feet. So it's not too steep.
sure, I can do rise and run and topo lines much better than I can apparently look at a aerial photo to figure out where cars are coming in. So that part made sense to me. So, but thank you for clarifying, Mr. Waters.
Yep. Yeah, and those are 1 foot contours. So I know standard oftentimes is 2 feet. So it looks steeper than it is on the top of the map.
Yeah, excellent. And you had an opportunity to review the staff report, I assume, and the recommended conditions, and see no issues related to those.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There's no issues with a buffer extension in the north. That's not really developable with the topography the way it is. So I'm not really exactly sure what a mitigation plan is, but you know the vegetation that's on the ground is just salal, so it's just natural, vegetation that's been there since I think that parcel was logged like 80 or years ago or something, or 100 years ago. But it's all just been natural wooded salal. So I don't expect that, we'll be doing a tremendous amount of disturbing what's there to build the access besides removing the necessary trees.
Sure, and I may have confused things, and I apologize. I think that's what I was trying to understand is we have two, and Jason Sullivan, please correct me if I'm wrong, two things going on. Condition one that has been recommended is essentially just saying part of the site that is not planned for development, that is not planned to have any impact at all, will sort of mitigate or account for the impacts that'll occur at a 3-to-1. So that's just looking again at a map, and you kind of are going to protect that area.
Yeah, maybe I can show my screen and help kind of get everybody on what's going on. So hold on a sec. I'm gonna bring up one of the images.
Yeah, so my understanding is I think Jason calculated about 7,000 square feet for the driveway.
Yeah. So if you look on my screen right now, I'm sharing my screen, so hopefully this will work.
Hope springs eternal.
Move that around.
No, we just got a weird view of your course.
Hold on, so I'm going to do this real quick.
Now
You should just see the plan. So
Yep.
let's scroll in here real quick. This is you've got the driveway, which is a permanent impact, and that would just be mitigated through the 3-to-1 ratio, along with the permanent impact for the infiltration gallery right here. Then you've got this slope work that's right here. That's just a regrade of the contours in order to make the driveway work. You're kind of having to regrade this area, and then also kind of over here in this area. So in this area, in the areas that we're having the regrading, we're going to need to see a planting plan of how that's going to be basically replanted, because it is going to be completely regraded, which means all the vegetation in that area would be removed. So we would just want to see a planting plan of how that slope is being regraded. It may not have to include trees, as I said, because you've got a lot of trees on site, but basically, some other sort of mitigation plantings that would be on that slope would be the mitigation for that temporary impact of the regrading.
But just so I understand theoretically, let's say that's 5,000 square feet of direct impacts that are going to mostly be redone or replanted with that plan. Is the 3-to-1 that we're talking about also, that's not in the same area, right? Isn't that in a different area on site? Or
yeah, so the 3-to-1 is only for the permanent impacts, which would be the width of the driveway.
Okay.
And then the width or the area that is the infiltration gallery. So if that is 3,000 square feet, the total impact permanent and temporary was the 5,000 or 7,000 I calculated. The temporary impact would just is the slope. The permanent is the driveway itself and the infiltration gallery. Say that is 3,000 square feet. The buffer on the north end of the property would just be increased, so it's got 3,000 more square feet in it.
Not 9,000? Where's the...
Or sorry, 9,000. Sorry, 3-to-1. Sorry.
But all that really means, for purposes of this project, is delineating it on the map and then the signage, right? It's going to be in the that
yes.
They lose that 9,000 that they had no plans on doing anything with, as it were, but it would be protected in perpetuity, and that's not the slope or the mitigation plan. That's actually, if the driveway and trench work is permanent, and that's 3,000 total square feet, just as the number we came up with, the mitigation is 3-to-1. In the other area, you're kind of bulbing out the buffer, elsewhere. But then for the indirect impact, which is the slope work, there's no 3-to-1, 2-to-1, etc. It's just redo it, but redo it with a
Correct.
mitigation plan. So am I getting it? Those are the two different things going on?
Yeah, because you've got two different impacts, and so for the temporary impacts, which is the slope work, just the regrading, we're just going to want that replanted with a mitigation plan. For the permanent impacts, which is the driveway and the infiltration gallery, to make it easy on everybody, is just increase the wetland buffer equal to that square footage on the north side where there's no plans. So the site plan would just need to be updated so that the fence line increases by 3,000 square feet somewhere over in that area, and that the kappa includes that area. So it's just it's a trade of area that would not be wetland buffer becoming wetland buffer.
Okay, and this is Jason Sullivan being helpful. Confused me until now I get it, but I want to make sure that the applicant gets it too, because there is a slight trade in terms of, you do need to protect that extra 9,000 square feet permanently in that kappa, which is not abnormal. What is abnormal is oftentimes you have highly degraded properties where when you do mitigation, there's a mitigation plan. Here, there's no mitigation plan for that 3-to-1. The mitigation plan I would almost just call it a planting plan. That's for the slope work, not...
Yeah.
But I want to make sure the waters understand, because I didn't intend to confuse things, and I know the intent was to be helpful. But are we on the same page? And maybe I'll test you, either of the waters, in terms of what happens if, say, there's 1,000 total square feet of driveway permanent impacts.
If what there was 1,000, then
1,000 new
yeah,
numbers.
yeah, then the in the northwestern portion of the buffer would increase 3,000 square feet, or 0.06 acres or something.
Oh man, don't go that far. But in the Kappa, permanently
Yeah,
protected at a 3 to
yeah.
1.
So we take a crayon and we just draw a new line up there,
So
and yeah.
there, and then in terms of, we'll let Cassandra Waters answer the other one. You're gonna have 800 square feet of slope that you're impacting. What do you have to do in terms of the driveway that impacts next to it with that 800 square feet? What's that answer?
Replanting the plants that are disturbed for the regrading.
With a
With with what?
With a dot dot dot.
With what? With the mitigation plan. Is that what you're
nailed,
talking about? Oh.
nailed
I
it.
thought that
Meaning
was the
you
mitigation
need a
plan.
plan for the other thing. You need a plan for this thing. Is that we all on the same page? This seems incredibly complicated. It's actually not, but things go wrong if we're not all on the same page and I write something that is confusing. So I want to make
Yeah.
sure I am crystal clear and you all are clear and Jason Sullivan agrees with you, because there are horrific potential consequences in terms of code enforcement if something isn't clear. And I very much believe that you all are not trying to be in that position by any means, but I think it sounds like we're all on the same page.
So what I'm hearing is a plan is only required for the replanting. A plan is not required for the buffer increase.
There you go. And mitigation plan, Jason Sullivan, is that a technical term or is it just a replanting plan? I mean,
Because it's in the wetland buffer, it would be a mitigation plan because we're not treating it as permanent impacts. So we would request that you just say a mitigation plan and then allow us to come up with the length of the monitoring period, because it may be reduced because it's just that small slope. We may not need a full 5-year monitor.
and what I'm going to do is write my decision in such a way that Jason Sullivan and his team will have discretion to work with you all, so that there's wiggle room to the extent that, again, this is clearly from the photos, this is a more pristine site than we often see. Often I have a, former gravel mine or
Oh yeah.
toxic dump or something, and you need a lot more work involved than what you all are dealing with. So we don't want it to be onerous, and I think you folks understand, and you'll work with Jason and his team and ensure that everything's taken care of. Is what it sounds like. So
Yep.
that's oh, go ahead, Jason.
Mr. Reeves, we would request though that when you write the mitigation plan, it's only for the slope work within the wetland buffer, not all the slope. I'm not worried about the slope work outside the wetland buffer. If you look at it, there's regrading that occurs outside the wetland buffer. They can replant that however they want. It's just the regrading that occurs within the wetland buffer.
And that's clearly delineated. I don't have the report open. Just one.
Yeah,
It's on
there's
the site plan.
It's on the site plan, shows the wetland. If you look at exhibit,
No, I just
if you look at exhibit 2, it clearly shows the regrading and the 110-foot wetland.
But point being, in terms of recommended condition 2, I might want to slightly clarify to the extent that a mitigation plan is required to replant the regraded slope between the blah, 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 that directly impacts the wetland buffer. I mean, would that be the clarification that's needed?
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. Okay, I think hopefully we're all on the same page, but Mr. Sullivan, anything further from you or your team? And for the Waters, anything else you folks wanted to add?
Yeah, so just to clarify Jason's last point, the driveway construction, he's saying write it so the plan only includes the quarter. Basically, the driveway is only a quarter of it falls within the buffer. I think what he's saying is write it only for that specific quarter that is impacting within the buffer, not for the development of the driveway as a whole. Is that accurate, Jason?
Yeah, we're only worried about the impacts on the wetland buffer. I think we're all on the same page. I really do.
That relates to both issues, is what I would say. So if it's
Correct.
100 feet wide is your right of way, but only 25 feet is within the buffer, when we're doing the 3-to-1 direct impact, it's 25 feet times however instead of 100.
And
Yeah.
But then also the area of slope, I think was Jason's other point, that has the mitigation plan that is downslope of the driveway that will have impacts. You know, you only need to replant and have a mitigation plan specific to the length that runs within the critical area buffer, right, Jason Sullivan?
yeah, I was going to say, Mr. Higginjammer, would it be helpful if we created an Exhibit 10
Yes.
which showed, because I can quickly draw this up on a map and show the direct and indirect areas with square footages and everything, and we could just reference in your decision as shown on Exhibit 10, and that way everybody has a visual image of the two areas that we're talking.
Yeah, but please have the Waters review it with you and make sure everyone's sort of on the same page. You know, I think we are, but you know, tomorrow, who knows? I think that would be useful. So I think I understand there's two separate kind of things going on. You know, one is the direct permanent, I guess would be the best word. Permanent impacts are going to be 3-to-1 up in the area that you're not doing anything on. And then the impermanent temporary impacts within the buffer in both instances. But the temporary impacts need the mitigation plan. I think that kind of clarifies it, hopefully. But
so what I can do, Mr. Higginjammer, I think to hopefully wrap this up, is I will give you revised conditions of approval that bring in this Exhibit 10 that I run by the Waters to make sure that they're okay with both the conditions and the mapping, and then I will give that to you by the end of the week. So if we could leave the record open for the end of the week, then I can give that to the Waters and let them review it, and hopefully that will kind of solve the area. I'll try to draw it up as best I can so everybody understands what I was.
There. And again, so to be clear, I'm not overly worried about the project itself. I'm worried about what happens 2 years, 3 years, if there's a delay, if we have, oh geez, knock on wood, another insane worldwide pandemic that causes, you know, you guys not to be able to break ground, et cetera. I just want to make sure, you know, that there's no issues and everything is crystal clear. And I don't often or always get to do this. I can tell you, based on my review, I see zero issue in ultimately approving the proposal with the conditions. But I just want everything to be as clear as possible on both ends, you and the city, and my decision in particular, to ensure again that there's no trouble down the line. So, and I think Jason Sullivan can attest to the fact I don't often tell people that I'm going to approve it. This is a somewhat unique situation, I think. So I've got all the reports I need. Everybody seems to now know what we're talking about. I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page. So hopefully that wraps it up. But the Waters, do you have any final ideas, thoughts?
Good to go?
Nope. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
But if Jason sends you something that seems wrong, like, you know, push back. Just make sure that you all agree. I just want to make sure that's the case. So I give him a hard time, but you guys, he is an excellent director. Jason, anything final on your end there?
No, I was just going to let the Waters know. I'll try to have that over to them first thing tomorrow morning, so they have a day to look at it, and then so we can have it to you by Friday to close the record out. And I'll label it as Exhibit 10, and then I'll give you a revised conditions.
Perfect. Okay. And just finally, before I close, we do not appear to have anyone that has joined us, correct? Virtually or otherwise.
That is correct. The only comments we had were the written comments that were included as an packet, and no one has appeared to testify at the hearing.
Right. Excellent. So I think with that, we can end the hearing and wish you folks all the best. And once we close the record at the end of the week, you can expect my decision a couple weeks after that. And good luck moving forward.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Jason. Thanks, Jason.
Bye.
Good job, buddy.
Ah.
Man, I didn't mean to be that difficult on you, but